Welcome to the Coaching Index podcast. Honest conversations between coaches, practical insights, knowledge, ideas, impact.
All I want to know really, man, is like your journey from the beginning to the end. Obviously, it's been like a long journey. You've done some really successful things, and then kind of we'll go into some detail from there. But how did it all start for you?
Yeah, well, growing up, I was a dual sport athlete. So I was soccer and baseball through my whole childhood, and then at the end of high school, actually, is when I sort of noticed a lot of things with myself in terms of injury prone and being able to deal with those kind of things. And I had no clue what I wanted to do at that point with my life, and being able to, well, first off, coach my little brother's team at ASA was my first sort of venture into coaching itself. And then, shortly after that, I think I spent a year doing that. I started applying for sort of coaching education courses, as well as just sort of diving into New York Red Bulls training programs, which was a huge change for me. I moved away from home at 18 to be able to sort of pursue that in New Jersey in Asbury Park. And, that for me was the sort of tick the box to check and sort of what I wanted to do with my life, and being able to go through that on a weekly basis. I mean, I think that if I can remember correctly, the schedules were Tuesdays and Thursdays were in the classrooms with some of the regional coordinators talking about how to formulate a session and how to deal with parents, and how to how to progress kids through certain stages of development. And sooner or later, 7 months after that, I moved back to Maryland and applied what I had learned. And then shortly after that, it was with Orlando City. I think that was really my sort of opening up party when it came to coaching itself. I mean, I was sort of thrown into an environment with two girls teams that I had never coached girls before. And it was an environment where I had to be organized, I had to be prepared, and I had to sort of make the adjustments all as I felt necessary and needed to. So as I progressed through the club and as I progressed through the years there was a lot of opportunities for me. I was fortunate enough to get an amazing high school program in Lake Mary that was fresh off of a state championship win. And so I came in the year after that, which was tough. It was a tough thing to do, to come in after that kind of after that kind of approach that they had. But sort of creating my own culture there, and sort of instilling a mindset in players throughout a long period of time was something that I really, really enjoyed. And then as all of that happens, I got my first NAL teams at Orlando City, and we went to an NAL championship there, which was phenomenal. I can't tell you the sort of mindset that we created, and it was really, really built off of that. So like our standards and everything that we had as a group was in top shape. And I think that the communication with the parents was really, really there, so that way they understood from the beginning. But then different opportunity came along in AS Frenzy, which was a U23 sort of college mix of players. I think we had 40 players total. 40 players total, with a mixture of Division I, former national team players, aspiring professional players. And my first season in that, we won a national championship. I mean, I think that, our expectations were set fast, and we knew what we had. And if we didn't sort of take the opportunity while we had it, and we knew that it was going to be thrown away, and all of this was going to be for nothing. So yeah, we had our trial and error through that season, and there was a lot of tough conversations with players, and being able to create the best possible environment for 40 some odd players is tough. But I think that when they're trying to develop in between college seasons, and then you mix in the fact that youth players are coming in and trying to get professional contracts, which, you know, I had never went through before. I had never been in an environment where a 16-year-old kid is pursuing a professional contract through a semi-pro team. You know, that's a unique environment for me. It's a unique environment for my whole staff at that point. But you look at him now, and the dude's about to perform for the Ivory Coast and everything like that, and that just like, it makes you really just take a step back and be able to say that, you know, everybody in their own opportunity gets their own way. There's a lot of those players now that were aspiring Division I players, and they're all Division I, and then aspiring professional players, and they've all had at least one professional contract since then, and sort of going through the motions there. So, you know, after that, there was a lot of conversation and me trying to sort of sprout and begin something that, you know, I could feel proud of, and that I could sort of create from the start. And that's sort of where I'm and why I'm here in Maryland, and being able to coach with the International Academy and sort of see what sort of, you know, begins from at that point. And, you know, obviously along the way there's all of the coaching licenses, and obviously we took our beat together and everything like that. So there's a lot of you know, inclination on continuing those coaching licenses, but also, you know, I want to get over and take a UEFA license or something a little bit more different. You know, I feel like if I were to get into my A license, it might be some of the same, and I think that's you know, I want to have different experiences and go throughout that and learn throughout my process. So, but yeah, that leads us back to this moment right now. So yeah.
I've been researching the UEFA B and stuff like that because I've seen a lot of people go do it, but then doing it in countries like Wales and Northern Ireland and stuff. Because I tried to look at the process to go into England to do it, but you have to be a resident to do it in England. I don't know what the difference between Wales and Northern Ireland are and stuff, their eligibility stuff, but I'm definitely looking into that as well, because I want to see the difference between, because I took my level 1, level 2 FA stuff before I came out here when I was 18. So I got a base of it, but I never really got to experience it in like the depth that we would want to now. And so even the A license, I have a huge interest in doing that at some point, but it's obviously scheduling and stuff like that. So one thing you talked about was I'm really interested in, and is a lot different to other people that we've talked to, is that you've had experience with like professional athletes and these players that are trying to make into the professional world or professional contract. What's the difference between that kind of player and maybe just a regular person that just going through kind of that plateau and just like, I'm just going to play soccer, or I'm going to get there at some point but don't want to put the work in? What's the difference between that person you explained who's about to play for the Ivory Coast to a regular person that's just like, oh yeah, it will happen at some point, I'm just going to get there?
I'd say the number one thing is they already see themselves as a professional athlete. I think that might be the difference. And I've talked about mindset with my teams. I always like drive home mindsets and our actions before games and how we prepare ourselves and what we do off the field to be able to, because at the end of the day, there's a lot more time off the field than there is on, and the habits that you create and everything sort of in those environments dictate what you're going to do with your life. And I think the biggest thing in the difference between the professional athletes that got there, or the ones that are aspiring to be professional, that got there, is that their habits already were habits of a professional player, right? Like, so I think that sort of separates the two in itself already. I mean, you look at the way that they compose themselves. Some of them are up. I mean, when we were on our trips, some of them were up at 8 a.m. already stretching inside the gym and taking care of themselves. No staff, no nothing, nobody telling them they need to do it. They're doing it. And I think that's a testament to why they're there. You know, some players can change environments and can change cultures for good and bad. But you know, what we had in terms of aspiring professional players was players that would, you know, hold each other accountable, but also players that would look at other players and say, why am I not doing that? Why am I not taking care of myself like that? Well, I have goals. I have goals to go play Division 1. I have goals to be a professional athlete. Why am I not doing these things on a daily basis? And I think that that's really the switch that flipped. You know, the DME players that we had at Frenzy were all knew that they were going to be Division 1 or professional athletes, plain and simple. So their habits, when some of the other Division 1 players came back and said, you know, I want to be a professional player, but here's the habits of a professional player, go and do it. And I think that that's the biggest, that was definitely the biggest thing. You know, looking at it from, they're starting to aspire me to do more and my staff to do more when we're there because of the habits that they uphold every day. So yeah, it was an experience.
So I want to relate that to kind of the club stuff because obviously where you're at, you're in club, you know, tryouts. I don't know where the tryout process is for you. We just went through tryouts in Utah, and Josh, when he talked to us, was going through tryouts in Colorado. And we had a huge conversation about environment, and you mentioned it 3 or 4 times already. Like the environment honestly shapes the person and their habits and stuff like that. What kind of an environment do you try to create at your club, or let's talk about as well an environment, how much an environment can dictate a player? So exactly, I'm going to use my daughter for example. She needed a change of environment this year, and it's completely changed her game and her love for the sport. Let's talk about that first. Let's talk about how an environment can really impact the player, because like you said, those players that you had in that UPSL team, that environment you had was probably really competitive. They all pushed each other. Like you said, they were doing things unseen where, you know, they were coming down stretching when they didn't have to, they didn't want to see the head coach. You didn't have to walk through there and be like, oh, okay, that's on my mind. You're doing the extra little things. That's really good. They're doing it without being seen. What kind of environment do you create in your teams that you think is really important for these players to grow?
Yeah, I think first off, the players have to feel safe in their environment. I think that they have to feel safe, but they also have to feel like pressure is on, you know, and I think that that's where some coaches might be able to differ from others, is that some coaches lead in a fear-based environment. Like, you know, I'm going to put all the fear possible in you to put pressure on you to be able to perform. And, you know, throughout my experiences, it's let's build a safe environment where, one, also I'm telling you where you stand in this environment, so that way, one, the communication is clear on what you need to do to be able to get to where you need to get to. But also, you're not in an environment that's you're laughing and you're goofing around and you're not getting anything done. So a safe environment where pressure is applied heavily. And I think that as you go through the process with younger players, obviously the safer one is more important because they want to feel like they can express themselves and they can be creative, and we're sort of supporting that environment for them. But as you get older, I feel like, you know, especially as they get into safe environments and they know they're safe and they can communicate with the coach and understand where they stand as a player within the team, you got to start to apply pressure, because if they want to accomplish their goals, then that's a necessity. So I think that there's a lot of different things that we try and do as coaches that, like, will apply pressure, whether it's playing time or the bench or anything like that. But I think communicating and letting them know where they stand is the most important thing. And being able to just go on this journey with the player, not have the player go on a journey and you just be there and vocalize what you see and do. I think that there's a big difference in those kind of things as we go through our journeys.
So talking about journey, we have a lot of articles and a lot of resources around parents. and how they can help support the journey. I think education for parents is non-existent. Especially if we think back to our B license, like there wasn't really any expectations for parents on there in the education part. So we kind of hit that emphasis because I think parents want to know and want to understand what to do. There's those outliers sometimes that, you know, they do their own thing regardless of whatever the coach says. But then there's also those parents that really don't know how to help. What's the biggest thing, a tip that maybe you give to parents to say, hey, this is how you can help your child? Because I love that you said they're doing a lot of things that the kids and the players spend a lot more time off the field than on the field. So really crucial that, you know, when they're around their parents, that they can reinforce the same things you're doing. But how can parents help? What do you tell your parents and your club team? Like, how can you help your players specifically?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always try and do with parents is, you know, I don't want to overstep into the boundary of, oh, here's how you parent your kid. But at the same time, I'm like, support your kids' independence first off. So, you know, they're not going to have to go through life with someone there all the time. I think there will be periods in a person's life where they have the realization that no one is there to help them, or no one's there to save them at that point in time. Obviously, you have people you can lean on, and that's important. But I think that supporting your child's independence is something that, you know, I'm going through right now with my U15 group. I need players to respond to me. I need players to respond to me on what certain things need to happen and how they need to happen. And I feel like sort of that's the in at Lake Mary, we did the make your bed. There was a big speech on making your bed and being able to you know, sort of check the first task off of the day to give yourself confidence, but two, to keep that ball rolling on sort of that independence factor of yourself. So I would say, you know, set a standard of independence. There are certain things that as they grow older, they need to be doing on their own. And I feel like that nurturing environment can be, you have to sort of lean them away from that to be able to help them sort of through that process. So
Yeah, parents can make a player or hurt a player, and I love that you said support the independence. I've never heard that before. Just helping them become themselves, I guess, is really, really crucial. I love that. That's super, super cool. One thing, when I asked you kind of like more background, deeper background into yourself, I noticed all your professional references. And it's something we haven't spoke about on here, and I think it'd be a really good topic because you're someone who's very well connected. What does mentorship mean to you, and what should mentorship mean to a beginning coach? Because I always talk about this in the grassroots licenses, is that you should find someone in your own environment who's your mentor that you can always ask these questions to. You can go to, you know, the coaches of the best thieves, things like that. So for you and your references and your professional references, there were a lot of higher level coaches, academy coaches, different things like that. What does that look for you? What's the importance behind a mentorship in coaching, especially, and how has that helped you?
yeah, so I think I'm gonna dial it back to our license course, man. And it's I can't remember who said it, but it was take the best and leave the rest. I'm so inclined to be able to continue to network and meet people and be able to have those conversations with people. But when it comes to your environment, you must have somebody that is challenging you, because if you don't, then you're not progressing anywhere. And I think that, you know, in my environments, I've been very, very extremely fortunate, because I know it sounds crazy, but like, I'm not a big networking guy. I'm a big like LinkedIn, send you a message, connect guy. But I mean, I would love to be able to do more things like this when it comes to networking and communicating with coaches. You know, but yeah, back to being in your environment and having somebody that can not only push you but make you think differently. You know, I've had some mentors that have given me a lot of content, different training ideas, but nothing that makes me sort of coach them better. And then I've had mentors that dial it in and say, okay, your coaching points need to be way shorter. You're rambling on. You're going on for 2 minutes, and you need to shut up and get them going again. And I think that's the difference, is that I've had a lot of mentors that are different in so many ways. Some mentors have helped me out from an organizational standpoint. So how I'm building my sessions in sports session planner, or how I'm communicating with parents. Why something needs to sound way different than what I'm actually typing to a parent, because from their perspective it might seem like this or that. So a lot of environments, but you need to have a lot of mentors, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a capability sort of ceiling with yourself starting to morph into that mentor. And it's like, okay, well, I have to go through the motions in terms of my journey as a coach, and I want to take the best things from these mentors and apply them to my life. And if they work, great. If they don't, leave it. And sort of go through that process as a coach, because I think that's part of your journey, is taking things that and applying them to your environment. And if they don't work to your environment at that moment in time, then that's cool. But just try and apply things, and try and take what you've learned from that mentor and apply them. Because if you take it and you lock it up in a box and you save it for a rainy day, then I think you're selling yourself short. You gotta apply these things differently and go through your losses, per se, to get to the wins. So
One question that came to my mind as you were talking, and we haven't asked it, is I had someone a couple of weeks ago ask me how to approach someone to be a mentor, because in the sport of soccer, and I think sports in general, there's a lot of opinion based, very people are self-centered, being like, I'm the best at this, I'm the best, I don't want to help others. But I think there's also the other way. There's a lot of people that do want to help. How did you approach some of those people in your references? How did you approach them and be like, hey, can you mentor me? Or was that even a conversation? Or did they just start mentoring you? Or did you start mentoring people out of just not even asking, just like it just happened because you're just a great person? So what does that look like, approaching someone maybe for, hey, how do you ask that question? What does that look like?
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's it's a tough thing to look at coaches in terms of where they stand and be able to ask them, hey, do you have 30 minutes to go over something, or do you have 5 minutes to talk about something? And as they're higher and higher up, like the higher and higher they get in terms of their title or their standing, it gets harder and harder because you realize what their daily schedule looks like, or you can realize a lot of things about them as a person or anything like that. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to not be afraid for them to say no. First off, if they say no, they say no. And then I think that's one of the biggest things, is that you're never going to know unless you ask. And I think going through the process of getting to know some of the coaches, some of them, I mean, Miles, for example, I coached his daughter at Orlando City for a year, and the guy was willing to meet with me and talk about sessions that he ran for Orlando City's first team, and at the time, and it was just like this guy is amazing. Like he takes time out of his day to be able to teach me what the next level looks like, even though at that point in time, it was 8 years ago, I had my license. Like I was nowhere near that level, but he's just taking the time out of his day to just go over what the next level looks like, and how you can progress into that. And it's just taking those meetings as they come. Because if you can get 5 minutes with, I mean, if I got 5 minutes with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, it would probably be the most valuable 5 minutes I had in a very, very long time. So it's just like, take those opportunities where you can get them, from anybody that that's above your level, or above, what or where you want to be. So
Yeah. Josh said something really cool. He said about leave your ego at the door. That's the
Yeah.
first thing he said. Um, and so going to your point, like if there are people that don't want to mentor, exactly what you said from the course, take the best, leave the rest. Like you don't need that person, I guess, at that point. I want to really dive in real quick to your leadership course that you're taking. Because continuous education is huge for any coach. That no one, even Pep Guardiola is continually working, and parents need to continue to keep going. So the coaches, what are you doing? Explain to me what the leadership course is and where you're taking it from. What does it look like for you?
Yeah, I mean it's a Bachelor of Arts in Leadership at UCF, online right now. I'm back in Maryland, so you know the throughout my first, I would say, decade of my coaching journey, it was the education part was definitely it was there through coaching education courses and being able to dial in through some online courses here and there and being able to progress my degree wherever I feel. But for me and sort of my goals and where I want to be, college coaching is a possibility, and I know that if that's a possibility, more education on getting a bachelor's isn't going to hurt me. So being able to take that leadership, the leadership online courses at UCF has really helped me, sort of just continue to have that upward trajectory in terms of my education. It's helped me with mindset and then different ways of leading. I mean, I can't tell you how starstruck I was when I figured out how many ways to lead there are. And I'm just like, wow, I'm getting on 30 years old and I'm trying to progress through the stages of learning here. And I figured out there's 8 different ways that people like to lead, and then there's subcategories, and seeing different examples of how people lead is tremendous to be able to look at, and you do the same thing. You do the same thing in your environments. Like everything that I learn on a daily basis for school and for my education when it comes to this leadership course is applied, either that afternoon or some point that month within my sessions, because it's just a format of how to get the best out of every player, um, and how to get the best out of every person, and being able to know that every person is different. I think that's something that coaches might take a little bit for granted, and I did at the very beginning. Was like, okay, how do I coach my team? And it's like, no, well, you got to talk to Jimmy different than you do Johnny, and you have to know that Johnny's going through something tough at home, and Jimmy just is the perfect kid, and it's just like those things matter, and being able to communicate that properly, is sort of what I'm continuing to learn on, throughout these courses, and just being able to get the best out of every player while also making sure the communication end of everything is everybody knows where they stand, everybody wants to be here, everybody's positive in their own growth. So
You kind of alluded to it, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. What's one of the most valuable things you learned from the course so far?
oh man, I mean, the resources first are amazing, but I can say just the perspective of being able to look at my journey and look at soccer as a whole and football and whatever. But it's like being able to have sort of an overview and know that leadership exists everywhere. It exists in every possible environment. There's a continuing factor with leadership in literally every environment that you're in. And I think that carrying that through your experiences as a person is like, if you want to be better in your football environment leading, then do a better job of leading at home, or do a better job of leading your personal journeys and the groups that you're in, or at least try to be able to format those things. I think that it's really really important, because at some point here soon, I would love to have a leadership role at Liverpool, and I think that that's something that I'm building towards, and you know, just working through the stages to be able to get to that point. I'm really excited for. So yeah.
No, you'll do great. You'll do super good when you get to that point. Last kind of question for you. We always ask this question, and everyone has a different answer. So, thinking back to the beginning of your coaching journey, what is one thing, any advice you would give to any coach coming into the game? So, it might be, a parent who stepped into their club team to coach it because their kid, won't play otherwise, they don't have a coach. Someone who's just, stepping into an environment where they're not, they don't understand anything. What's one bit of advice would you give that new coach? Or maybe it's a new coach into your club. What's one thing you say that they should do?
Yeah, I don't want to just take what you said earlier, but you got to leave your ego at the door. You really do. I'm so adamant on the fact that, like, I've learned from coaches that have E license and D license and C license, and everybody looks at it as like, what? You have your B license. Like, we learn from everybody. We learn from every possible avenue or resource that we can possibly pull from. We're going to learn from that. And I think, I've learned, I'm not afraid to sit here and say that, I've learned from having conversations with parents on their perspective on things. I mean, I know that can be a tough road to go down, but I think because if it can be seen as like a weakness or something along those lines. But I'm like, they have their opinions and they have certain things, and yes, they have a bias towards their kid or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, we have to continue the growth mindset to be able to keep ourselves moving forward. Because I think at the end of the day, that's the process that we have to go through. I mean, we never stop learning. If you stop learning and then you have a fixed mindset, I just see that as a real halt in anyone's development as a person. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes me laugh because every time I ask that question to any coach, it's never coaching. Like, and no one ever says, "Hey, yeah, go load up on session plans, go do this." It's nothing about coaching. It's all about leadership. It's all about communication. It's amazing. Last thing for you, man. Who's winning the World Cup this year? Who you got?
Oh man, I've been juggling between two separate teams really. I really like Spain. I think the Euros opened my eyes a lot towards what a good team looks like versus a lot of good players, right? Like France, obviously, top to bottom, I think that they're one of the best teams player for player, but that's not the game. I would say Portugal, I'm really excited to watch. Their midfield has three of the most prime players at their prime, I think, right now. So watching their midfield work is going to be something that is just like, it's either going to be jaw dropping or very disappointing. So I'm excited to watch them as well. And then I think they're gonna shock a lot of people, but Ivory Coast, I'm not gonna say they're gonna win. I'm not gonna say they're gonna win, but I will say that obviously I have a lot of bias towards that, but I think that there's I'm really excited to watch them go at it. I mean, I've dialed up and seen what they're capable of when it comes to line for line and player for player and depth, and I think that they're definitely going to be a dark horse. They are the dark horse pick. But yeah, man, I think that those, Spain and Portugal, I'm excited for. I think all the other teams made a lot of bad decisions in terms of their selections. So yeah.
Oh, are you aiming out at England? Because my goodness, our selection's been crazy.
I just Phil Foden and Cole Palmer, it just doesn't fit right with me not having both of them in there. And Yeah, I mean, even Brazil, João Pedro. I mean, I think that's crazy to see, but um, there's a lot of talented players left home, so I think that it's no, it's gonna be interesting. But hey, England's got a chance. They always got a chance. They're gonna get to a
Well,
they're gonna get to a quarterfinal. We know that, so it's like just yeah.
they'll get to a quarterfinal, semi-final, and lose on PKs or something. We know it's going to happen. Anyway, Tyler, dude, I want to thank you for just jumping on with me, having this conversation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Coaches Conversations, presented by the Coaching Index. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a coach, parent, or player who may benefit from it. For more coaching insights, resources, articles, and future conversations, follow us on Instagram at the Coaching Index. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making an impact.